Welcome to Truth Talk Live.
All right, let's talk.
The truth is, I can't hide it, I can't hold it no more.
A daily program powered by the Truth Network,
This is kind of a great thing, and I'll tell you why.
where pop culture, current events, and theology all come together.
Speak
Your mind.
And now, here's today's Truth Talk Live host.
Boy, do we have a question for you today. And that question is, what words saved you? What? Well, they could have saved you in a lot of different ways because words have all sorts of power. And that's a very interesting question when you begin to ponder it. And there I'll say it again. It's what words saved you. And we would love for you to call and share. It's the calls that make the show so much. It's 866-348-7884 is the number to call in and share. 866-348-7884. We have the author himself, Herb Burns, of the book, What Words Saved You? Or Words Can Save is actually the author, is the name of the title of the book. And so, Herb, in your case, right, they saved you in so many different ways, and there's so many different ways you can look at this question. But what's the way that immediately comes to your mind?
Well, the very first way is when I was a child, John 3:16, for God so loved the world, So that was the verse that gave me salvation in Christ. So then over years you mature, you have a job, in the job you try to build your credentials up, and man, that's what I was trying to do. I was trying to get this very prestigious award. I had to have a president of a college endorse me. I had to have my dean endorse me. It took me months to prepare documents to submit. So I submitted the documents, and I got a letter back. Thank you for your submission. You know what that means when they say thank you rather than congratulations. So I said, well, I didn't make it this year. I'm going to try again another year. So the next year, I went back to the president again. Will you endorse me a second time? He said, yeah. I went through the same procedures, submitted my application, and got that same reply back. Thank you for your application this year. However, man, in that moment, I was so angry. I'm a very competitive person. I got really upset, and I slammed my hands on the desk, and I prayed these words, and these words changed my life. They saved me in a different way. I prayed, God, I've got to stop praying. What can you do for me? God, I got to start praying. God, what can I do for you? And in that moment of silence, there was some kind of resonating thought that came to me, and the message that came to me was, Herb, how about using your talents to spread my words? And I'm thinking to myself, oh no. I'm a Christian, I go to church, but you know what? I've never read your Bible all the way through. I can't spread your word unless I know what's in the Bible. So I started my journey of reading the Bible, word by word, page by page, for the first time in my life. And that was about almost 7 years ago. And when I finished each chapter of the Bible, I wrote down a little history of that Bible. How do you apply that application in the real world? And I did a digital painting for every book of the Bible. So when I finished that book, I said, okay, God, what's next? He responded back to me. He said, well, don't you understand? Never stop. I said, well, what should I never stop doing? I started thinking. And then over time, I wrote 3 series of books about what you should never stop doing. And then I said, okay, what's next? And God said, well, technology's getting pretty bad. You better tell some people to wake up about technology. So then I wrote a prophetic science fiction book about what's going to happen in the future with technology. For example, if you're driving from North Carolina to Virginia, you got to have a travel passport or the G5 tires will shut your car down. Great earth shaking. Now we have the island of Miami. Those are some things. And some people say, Herb, you're disguising the truth as science fiction. So I finished that book, and it was kind of exciting. I said, well, we got to have some calmness now. So people started telling me, Herb, you need to write down some of your thoughts. They're really calming and make you think. So then I wrote down 100 quotations of my thoughts. And I said, gee, I wonder if there's a Bible verse, a unique Bible verse connected to each quote. And believe it or not, there was a unique Bible verse for every quote and every application. And so then that was book number 6. Then all of a sudden, man, some people started saying some words that they were killing a relationship. And I'm thinking, gee, what words can I say? What words can save? How can I speak to somebody? How can I write to somebody? So I started doing research on how to...
you're actually talking about saving the relationship.
Saving a relationship, absolutely, right. Absolutely.
And so that was interesting, the conflict that God was allowing you to get into at that particular time in order to come up with the concept for the book.
Well, I hadn't even thought about that. You're just a brilliant man. Oh. And, so how do I respond to this, God? He said, well, let's talk about the words that can save. So, like I said, I started thinking about how do I write to that person and say, that's not really what I said. That's not really what I feel. I really love you, but I didn't say anything hateful in the response or anything condemning in the response, because the idea was to provide the mental healing for them and for me not to stir the pot and make it even worse. And I'm blessed to be surrounded by a bunch of Christians who are in the Word, who spread the Word.
So when you think about what he just said, and I'm hoping that a lot of you are thinking right a second, like, man, wait a minute. I was in this relationship, and God gave me these words that saved it. Or God gave the person that sent you the email, or they called you to save the relationship. That's a different way of saving than it is the actual salvation experience. Or maybe you had some other experience with words, and that's the idea of having a live radio show, is that you get to call in and you get to take part in the discussion. And we would really like to hear from you. As you know, I love stuff like that. 866-348-7884, 866-348-7884. And so, Herb, there you are, man. You got these. Obviously, there was more than one relationship that you were struggling with, or God had put on your heart that you needed to work on. Where did the Holy Spirit take you as far as the words to use?
Well, the first chapter is called Why Words? And just think about one word for a moment. Salvation, or love, or help. One word can be a spark that could kindle
create
a
the world.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah. What did God do? He said,
right, let there be light. He spoke everything into existence.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. So the first chapter is about why words. Then I talk about the power of speech. We hear, golly, it gives you a headache sometimes just to listen to the news media about what's being spoken and how it's being spoken. And one of the quotes in my previous book is the quote is, if in doubt, question the doubt until the truth is revealed. So when you hear something in the news, if you don't think it's right, dig deeper. Don't assume that that's 100% the truth of what you're listening to until you have found that message cannot be broken.
Yeah, and I would even add that it's a beautiful way to study the Bible. Not that you don't believe it's true, but that you don't understand it and you continue to pursue it until you go, I don't know what that means. I don't really know. And some of the richest experience I've ever had with Jesus is in discovering things I didn't understand. That's called learning. Anyway, a word. We know you got one. We would love to hear it. 866-348-7884. 866-34-TRUTH. When we come back, words. What word can save you? Welcome back to True Talk Live. Today's question, what words saved you? Not just your physical salvation, but maybe they saved you from getting in bad trouble. Like I can remember, it's just a funny story as I was just thinking about it. I remember when I was growing up in New Mexico, I made the mistake one time of, there was a car that was going by us and it screeched its tires. And rather than just letting that go, I decided to say something like, "Oh, how cool," or something like that. Little did I know that person took great offense. And before I knew it, I felt a rather large foot in my backside when I was in the store to turn around to find a whole group of people that were really not very happy with me. And I had to use some words real quick, Herb.
Don't repeat them.
No, they were good words.
Okay.
Like, man, I am so sorry. I had no idea, like, I will never do that again. Somehow or another, I managed not to get in any further altercations. So those words, I don't remember exactly what they were, but I do remember the situation. And I'm like, man, you can get in trouble fast when you let your words slip the wrong way, right?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. We got Jamal is in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. Jamal, you're on True Talk Live. So words, you got some words for us?
Yes, sir. I have a few words, and these won't be the words that you were talking about just a while ago. These will be a lot better words than you were referring to earlier. These are words to flatter and to shed light on what a good guy Mr. Herb Burns is.
Oh, don't lie, Jamal.
Oh no, never that. These are all true and true and good words. I was attending Wednesday in the Word at Dario, as me and Mr. Herb Burns does on a regular basis, along with about 40, 50 other guys. And every now and then I just feel this crazy notion to say something at the Bible study. And after a few times of saying something, Mr. Burns came up to me and said, "Hey, I believe there's a group that you would like to join. Why don't you come over here and let me introduce you to that group?" It was a political group, and I was not a political guy so much at the time, but I went there, and the first time I loved it. And it led to so many other connections, and I found out he was a Gideon, another one of his many talents and his many interactions amongst the community. So from the political group to the Gideons to a whole bunch of other things that he's gotten me into, Mr. Burns is the real deal. He not only pours into me, he pours into other people as well. There's another guy by the name of Wadagio, young 21-year-old now that he's been working with, and a bunch of other guys. So Mr. Burns is the real deal. His books are great. His quotes at Wednesday in the Word are great. And when his next book comes out, I'm going to be one of the first ones in line to get that book.
So have you read this book already, Jamal?
Not yet. I am looking forward to reading it. I have another book that I have to read in front of that. Sorry, no shade, Mr. Burns. But that book is on my to-do list, though.
Well, good. Well, thank you for calling in, Jamal. I appreciate it.
Jamal.
We
no problem.
Those are good words.
God
We
bless.
like good words. God bless you, my friend. All right. How about you? 866-348-7884. You think of words maybe got you out of a tight spot, or I can remember immediately that one time I got into a discussion with my son's girlfriend, who got really offended about a comment I made about Ellen DeGeneres. And I don't know, the Holy Spirit just gave me the words that, I need a Savior every bit as bad as Ellen does, and I'm just had a relationship with Christ really helped me out. And those words, she was like really upset with me, and you could see that she was all on go until those words came out, which the Holy Spirit gave me. And that led to some conversations. Eventually, Herb, she became such a good friend, as well as my son's girlfriend, that she became the producer of Christian Car Guy Show. In fact, if you ever see the documentary that was done on it, went to Elon College. She did all that. From what was started out as a great conflict, what you described is often an opportunity, right, for another type of intimacy. In other words, the conflicts come from people that care about something deeply. And, therein lies an opportunity sometimes to, dig in with words. And that's your toolbox. And I would also add, Herb, as a car salesman for 40 years, literally. Every salesman knows that is his toolbox, and being able to ask the right questions, be able to listen to other people's words, is a gigantic part of how that works as far as building relationships. So, getting back to the question again, if you've got one of these situations, I would love to hear from you. 866-348-7884, 866-348-7884. For specifically these relationships that you had talked about that caused you to write the book, right? You're praying, God, what do I say to this person that is obviously not pleased with you? What were some of the actual scriptures or things that God gave you to try to, push into that?
Well, I also mentioned that not only words can save you, but symbols can save you as well. I mean, you can see something that's miraculous, and somebody, in their words, explains what it is you're looking at. For example, my son David, he passed away when he was 47 years old. That Christmas, I saw on the wall a shadow, and in the shadow was this glowing Christian symbol of a fish. And I said, wow, God is really showing me something. So I took a picture of it, and I took it back and showed it to a friend at school. And they said, Herb, don't you really see what you're looking at? I said, no, what do you mean? He said, don't look at the bright light. Look at the shadow. And the shadow was a silhouette of Christ with a crown on his head. So when you look at the edge of the shadow, you see Christ's face. So the words that person shared with me was about something that I had seen, but my words did not describe what I was looking at. So someone else had to describe really what I was missing.
So again, I'll try this question.
Okay, one more time.
You had talked about you had a conflict with some people that you knew that words might help you in that situation. What I'm curious about is what God led you at that hopefully restored the relationship. And what words were those kind of, for people in the audience that might be in that situation, like, man, I could really use some words because I'm hurting in this one.
Yeah. Well, there's several ingredients to healing. And, consider using metaphors and analogies, but be kind in what you say. Learning is like building a house also. You have to have a good foundation in the words that you put together so that the structure of what you say, doesn't fall apart. And also, when you think about it, time is a thief. This means don't waste time to respond to somebody, because the longer you wait, the more. Yeah,
there's a proverb along those lines. You end up going to court and you pay every last dollar.
Yeah. And, faith is like a mustard seed. In your healing conversation, tell someone your faith in someone so that they feel confident and strong. With you will give them strength and encouragement to do mighty works.
That's a beautiful thing. Yeah, to encourage or to show them that you have faith in them.
Yes, absolutely.
Is a tremendous answer. How about you? We would love to know your words that saved your bacon. However that worked out. 866-348-7884. 866-34-TRUTH. We'll be right back with your words, I hope. Give us a call.
Truth Talk Live.
That's one of the quotes in my book.
What words saved you today on True Talk Live? We would love to hear, your story. Like, we know that other people struggle with relationships or they struggle in their salvation. With the words that God gave us such powerful tools that make such a difference in our lives. Oh man, can we mess up? Because I like what you said just a minute ago, Herb, that about storms.
Oh, you want to repeat that?
Yes,
that quote?
yes.
So in my previous book, a quote could lead the way. Quote number 25 is, "Words are like the wind. We only see their effects and don't be the storm." Now, when I wrote that, there's a biblical connection to it, which is John 3:8. Like the wind, spirit is invisible. A person cannot see it move or work. However, one can see the effect of what the Spirit does. One can see how it acts on things, just as the wind going through a tree full of leaves. One cannot see the wind, but everyone has seen how it makes the tree's leaves and the branches sway. So the words that we say, we don't want them to blow the leaves off the tree. We don't want to be the storm.
Well, and that has to do with the spirit they're delivered to, right?
Yeah.
And certainly the spirit is in those words. As we have those challenges, deep family challenges, especially if there's some place where there's offense. It gets really close to home. Your kids, your grandkids, it because there's so many things in your life that trigger them, right? And so it's a fascinating thing to me how God has allowed us, Tammy and I, to weather some of those situations quite often by just allowing the other person to use their words and listening intentionally. Like, man, they really need to express themselves, and even though they're bringing on the storm, you got to go.
Well, my first book in the Never Stop series was based on 3 words. And the 3 words are ask, discover, and share. So think about what you've asked somebody to do. Think about what somebody has asked you to do. Think about what the Scripture asks you to do. And are you acting on the word ask? Then the next word is discover. As a young boy, you probably discovered some things like how to change a tire. That was a discovery. I asked a group of people one time, what discovery has been most transformative in your life? And they said, the automobile, television, the cell phone. All those discoveries they talked about were technological discoveries. I said, well, what about the discovery of love? What about the discovery of faith, discovery of friends, discovery of family? They never even thought about those in terms of the life-changing discoveries. And then share. Once you've learned something, discovered something, how are you going to share that to make an impact on others, regardless of what your profession might be?
Yeah, which brings it to another part of the question we're asking today, right? Because often we all get a chance to share our faith, right? And you've got so many different ways to go. As far as, in some cases you share a Bible verse, in some cases you share your own story, or pieces of the Bible in your own story. Maybe you got those words that you're thinking about right now as you're listening that made all the difference when you shared your faith recently. 866-348-7884. 866-348-7884. I'd love to hear those stories, especially, right? That you had these words that made an impact in somebody's life because, God gave them to you. God does the work, but you were the one who got to say the words, right, Herb?
Absolutely. So if you're listening, call in and tell us what word has caused you to make a change in your direction. Sometimes we'll be on a route in our life, and we'll have to take a detour. And that detour may bring a surprise when you get to the end of the road.
Yeah, I can assure you There are many detours.
Absolutely.
I'm often amazed. In any given day, there's at least 40, right? That you thought you were going to get this done and you were going to get that done. But it's fascinating that often those opportunities that came along, the biggest opportunities of your day, you had nowhere close to planned it. Mm-mm. But there you are in the middle of this conversation, or there you are. When I was coming back from Bible study Wednesday night, I saw a truck that was pulled over in this field, and I could see it had lost a wheel, and it was down in the dirt, and I thought, man, and I pulled over, and it's like, because it was out in farm country, it was a little different situation where there wouldn't be anybody by in a while, and lo and behold, man, here was this guy that the Lord had just saved his life, and he's testifying out there about how this wheel came off. I mean, literally, the tire came off the wheel, and it's out there in the field, and how God had protected him. It was a beautiful thing, and it just was one of those that, like, man, I wouldn't want to miss this today. This is something God had for me.
Yeah, I was on a mission trip, a musical mission trip with our church one year, and the leader asked me if I would do a little Bible study or devotional on the trip. I said, yeah. When do you want me to do it? So he picked the seventh day of that week for me to do it. I said, gee.
Would that be Sunday?
It wasn't a Sunday. No.
It was the seventh day.
So I said,
of the trip, apparently.
Yeah, it was seventh day of the trip. It was the seventh day of the month, too. And so I said, gee, I'm going to come up with 7 words for this devotional. So I'm going to give you the 7 words now I did for this devotional. They all are based on the letter L. So we go look, listen, learn, love, lead, live, and leave. And there was an application and a Bible verse for each one of those words in the devotional. So the 7 L's for your day.
There you go, 7 more words. That click off something in your brain. 866-348-7884. I got to ask, so leave, you finished with that one. How does that one fit into the equation?
Yeah, so when you leave someone, when you leave a meeting, when you leave your job, when you leave to go to heaven, what have you left behind that will be an impact for others after you have left?
There you go. Yeah, it's pretty cool. In radio,
yeah.
we still hear J. Vernon McGee to this
Yeah.
day. And he's left his wisdom
Yeah.
and I have a friend, a dear friend, who was saved long after J. Vernon was gone to heaven by words that were delivered by the Holy Spirit through J. Vernon. Kind of cool that those things you do leave behind.
Yeah.
And
so when I leave you today, you're going to leave me memories.
I am. I'm going to have new L's to think about.
Yeah.
I
have an L of a day. My wife says, don't say that, Herb.
All right. 866-348-7884. What words saved you? And I can honestly say that in my own salvation experience, I was reading the Bible. I had picked up a series by Norman Vincent Peale called The Power of Positive Thinking. It was actually a cassette series. And it was $100 to buy this thing. And I was like, man, this is going to help me sell more cars. That's the whole reason I did it, because I needed positive thinking in order to sell more cars, Herb. I was so far from wanting to find faith, it's not even funny. And the very first opening of this tape series, he said, well, if you want to have a positive mental attitude, the very first thing you need to do is get up an hour early every single morning, pray, ask God to show you, and read the Bible. What he showed you when you were 70, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, you've got to be kidding me. Like, I bought this series, and they say to read the Bible? Like, what in the world? But I thought, well, I invested the money. This is what he said to do. I'll do it. I got up an hour later. I started reading the Bible, right? You can picture this car salesman trying to sell more cars as he's reading about Noah and the boys and Ham and all these different things, like laying in his tent and all this stuff. And I'm trying to figure out, what in the world does this have to do with selling cars? I mean, it just made no sense to me, but I kept reading. And I kept reading. I got to the book of Job. Actually, the more I read, the madder I got at God, because I started to think, man, God, you're supposed to be loving. And there's people that are stoned, and they covered up a whole hill of Achan's family. And, because he kept the devoted things in Jericho, and all these things were just sitting in my craw, and I was really kind of angry about it. And I got to the book of Job, and I was really, really upset about God dealing with Job the way he did. And when we got to the end of the book of Job, interestingly, God turned on Job / Robbie and said, well, Robbie, since you're so smart, you use some words. He said, why don't you make the tide come in, just impress me. Since you know so much, why don't you make it snow? And those things, they got my attention, but what really got my attention was the word Leviathan. And I was like, and Behemoth. I was like, what in the world is a behemoth? I didn't know the answer to that, your curiosity question. And so here's this word, behemoth. I don't know what it means. I look in every dictionary. I can't find anything that tells me what a behemoth is. And I go to a Christian friend I know, and I said, you read the Bible. What is this word? He goes, I have no idea. Your best bet's to go down to the Christian bookstore and buy a commentary. I had no idea what that was. Here was this complete heathen car salesman gone into Lifeway to buy a commentary. They give me the Matthew Henry commentary. I finally figure out what a behemoth is, right? And in the process, God was taking down my pride to say, Robbie, you don't even know what these words are, better yet, how to, decide what God is right or wrong in any given situation. The more I realized it, I said, well, man, there is a God and I'm not him. And he's got a really high standard. Like, I got a real problem. And so that word behemoth, in its own way, just totally.
Wow. That's really a segue. So let's flash back just a minute. Because when I told you, I started writing because of failure. Where after I was writing this first book, I told you I got these rejection letters from this thing I was trying to build up. Oh, it's commercial time coming up. We'll start on it when we get back.
Yeah, I know you got a story and you've been waiting on it. So here we got one more segment to get it in here. 866-348-7884. What word saved you? 866-348-7884. We'll be right back.
Truth Talk Live.
Welcome back to Truth Talk Live. Today's question, what words saved you? 866-348-7884. 866-348-7884. We're here with Herb Burns. He is the author now of 7 books, which starts with Route 66 and moves on to your second book. Was it
Never Stop?
Never Stop, and then we never stopped 3 times.
That's right.
And then we went on to a quote, and then the Towers, and now Words Can Save.
Correct.
And so that's beautiful. So when we left our hero Herb, not that we're not waiting on your call at 866-348-7884, but when we left our hero Herb, he was jumping in. He had a story.
Oh, yeah. I was going to tell about the failure moment that caused me to start writing. So after I started writing, I mentioned that I was trying to build my credentials up, and I failed 2 years in a row. So after I started writing the book, God listens. He sees you. He has a vision and a mission for you. So I'm writing my books, and I get this email from this organization. We haven't received your application this year. Duh. I didn't apply this year. They said, you've got 1 week. You got 7 days to submit your application. This was something that was taking me months to prepare. Had to go back the 3rd time and get the president of the college to endorse me. He must have felt that was good. So he endorsed me. I threw some stuff together, turned it in. And then a couple of weeks later, I get this email back, and it said, congratulations. You are one of 5 academians in the United States that has been selected this year to be a Fulbright Scholar to Russia. So Out of this nation, I was one of 5 people picked to share my knowledge and wisdom with universities in another country. That's a miraculous thing. When you surrender your pride, God knows how to prepare you for what's going to come in the future.
And so you got to do that with Russia.
Yes. And they loved what I was presenting to them. But the sad news is I was in Russia in 2014, and Crimea was invaded in 2014. So the Department of Education in Russia wouldn't do anything with us because we put sanctions on Russia because of the invasion of Ukraine. And guess what? God flipped that. I became part of a mission team. For 5 years, I've been going to Ukraine, teaching leadership classes and marketing classes to business people. And this summer, we brought some over to this network a couple of years ago.
Right.
This summer, we're going to have almost 10 to 15 more Ukrainians here in May.
Is Dennis Lennon still involved with that?
Dennis sure is.
Yeah, it's a great organization. It's beyond cool. So it's a words issue, and so some words can save, some words can certainly cause the storm, and it's worked out in your life. In those relationships, did God give you some words that help fix them?
Yeah, you go up to somebody and you put your arm around them and you just say, I really love you. I enjoy being in company with you. If there's anything I can do to help you in the future, let me know. When you connect with a network that people know you have loving, caring heart for them, they're willing to connect with you and let you help them however you might be led to.
Yeah. I'd like to think of it as sometimes glory finding, right? That inside of every single human being is God. He's in there. And if you can spot how he shows off inside that person, sometimes it's through writing. Sometimes it's through the way they sing. Sometimes it's there's all sorts of different ways. And my wife's gift is similar to your wife's gift. She had an amazing ability to keep really young children. Like, she loved to keep babies. It was an absolutely beautiful thing. Your wife happens to be a teacher, right? And I know that.
Not only a teacher, man, my wife is an incredible editor. I write books, but I don't understand English. She knows where the period goes. She knows what a conjunction is, all those things. And if it wasn't for her blessing, my books would never be published.
Right. And inside of the word grace, if you look at the mechanics of the word grace, you're going to find it has to do with favor, but it also, if you think about it, favor comes from faith. I believe that you can be a great teacher. I believe that you can be a great writer. I believe, and when you begin to believe in somebody like that, it's actually a form of grace that they sense that you trust, that you believe in them, that you know that they can make it, and that it just like you say, it has great traction in providing that relationship with some more fuel.
Well, Susan, my wife, it just has given the strength and the correct sequencing of what I say. She makes it perfect. The English is perfect.
I'll bet.
Somebody said, do you know a foreign language? I said, yeah, I'm still learning English.
So you grabbed your book and you got a chapter there. I know something excited you.
Yeah, you never know when your path is going to cross somebody. So in my book, Route 66, I was out at Mount Rushmore one year.
Oh, it's beautiful.
And thousands of people out there. Have you been there?
Many times.
Okay, thousands of people. I see this guy off in the distance. He just catches my eye. And I know you can't see this on the radio, but in the book there's a painting. He's got a red beard on the left. My painting of the Last Supper. So this guy walks up to me, total stranger. I say, I'm writing a book. I'm just impressed by what I see and feel in you. I don't even know you. Can I take your picture and put it in my book? He kind of frowns and says, okay. So I take 9 pictures of his face. I say, okay, tell me about yourself. He said, well, I'm a veteran, and last year I got really sick and I lost my eyesight. I said, well, you can see now what happened. He said, well, people were laying hands on me, praying for me. In a week, my eyesight came back. I said, wow, what are you doing now? He said, well, as a veteran, I didn't have any transportation. So some veterans donated a truck and gave it to me. I said, okay, what are you doing now? He said, I'm driving across the nation spreading the gospel. So of all those thousands of people at Mount Rushmore, he was put in front of me, and I said, he has to be a face of one of the disciples in my painting. So there's a story behind every face that's in that painting about how God has put somebody.
The boldness you had to walk up to somebody.
Oh, I know. Yeah, I walked up to a guy at restaurant here in town, Jerry. What's it called? Out on Country Club Road. You know it.
I'm sure.
Tom and Jerry's.
Tom and Jerry's.
Tom and Jerry. So I see a guy sitting in there, and again, total stranger. I take his picture, and he becomes the face of Daniel in my book. He just looked like Daniel, so he became the face of Daniel. That's amazing.
That's boldness. How about you? We got a few more minutes left. We would love to hear from you. 866-348-7884. Words can save.
Yeah, call
save
in.
a
I want to
relationship.
hear what you say. Yeah.
Save your direction. I know lots of people that got words from God. Put your seatbelt on, things like that literally saved their life. Like they heard from God a word. Like, stop doing this. I knew of several people that heard from God to stop drinking, stop smoking, and literally changed not only obviously their physical well-being, but changed their faith because they sensed that God not only knew what was going on, but he cared deeply about them enough to say, stop it, right? And so I know you may have that story. We would love to hear it. 866-348-7884. I love stories like that. Some of the words that I've gotten from God literally changed my automotive career in that I had failed horribly at my first job as a general manager for working for Crown at the time, Crown Dodge. And I, in my failure, went out and said, okay, God, I give up. I obviously do not know how to run a car dealership. And, what in the world? And after a great deal of prayer, I finally heard these words. Robbie, when it's all said and done, it won't matter how many cars you sell, and it won't matter what your customer satisfaction index is. The only thing that will really matter is how many people you really help. Mm-hmm. And I changed my whole philosophy on doing business at that point in time. Even to this very day, the Christian Car Guy Show is a result of how many people can you truly help, right? Yeah. Which is kind of what you're doing with your books. The same kind of thing, right? It's like, God, you gave me whatever, and now how can I help? Like, I get to help you as an author, obviously, promote this idea of, which, by the way, promoting that, you've got your own website, herbburns.com.
That's right, www.herbburns.com. And you can not only see information about the books, but there's a podcast link there. I used to mentor high school Hispanic boys, so you can download free Bible lessons from that website also. And maybe discover some strange things about me you didn't know. Yeah,
and again, it's just Herb and then Burns, B-U-R-N-S, nothing fancy, and .com. And there you're going to see all 7 of his books, including this one, Words Can Save. Obviously, a lot of thought. And the original book, Route 66, right, that you went through the Bible just sharing insights from every book. What a fun thing to journey through those 66 books with Herb and see what you got. So again, herbburns.com. And again, if you get one of those books, go on Amazon and, give him a rating and give him some feedback. Authors love stuff like that. It makes such an impact on their life. Thanks, Herb. Good words today. And thank you for listening. We will talk to you tomorrow on Truth Talk Live.
Truth Talk Live.